obviously during these big elections, lots of different issues, lots of candidates to get folks passionate and excited. And so we are expecting, record or near record turnout. And a lot of folks obviously are already casting those ballots.
Um, can you explain first of all, then, to our listeners who might not understand, they all think it's happening, on November the 5th. But what has been happening so far? What has the experience been like for you so far in terms of people voting, and in terms of the preparations for the actual day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the registrar of voters for Merced County. It's the chief elections official for a county here in California. And in the state of California, we mail ballots, official ballots, out to all registered voters 29 days before election. And that is the start of early voting in the state of California. Many states in the United States do similar processes, although each one is a little different in their own way. So for us here in Central California, we mailed ballots out to all of our voters several weeks ago. They have been voting those vote by mail ballots, frankly, in droves. We're seeing higher turnout earlier than we've ever seen in any previous election. And we also have vote centers, actual in person voting taking place as of this last Saturday. And that will take place through Election Day as well. And between the in-person voting as well as the vote by mail voting that's been happening, we already have more than 20% of our voters having cast a ballot. So this election really isn't a one-day process. It's about a month of voting that is occurring here.
And had you anticipated that more people were going to vote and be interested in voting this time around?
We had so in November of 2020, this county that I live in here that I'm serving saw a record turnout during the last presidential election. We had nearly 80% turnout. For us, that was a record. And so, as we looked ahead to planning for the November 2024 election here, that was certainly in the back of our mind. That was certainly a planning factor for us. There's a lot of logistics, obviously, that go on behind the scenes with elections, and so for us, anticipating large turnout was critical. There are a lot of important issues on the ballot in addition to the presidency, and so what we see is obviously during these big elections, lots of different issues, lots of candidates to get folks passionate and excited, and so we are expecting record or near record turnout. And a lot of folks obviously are already casting those ballots.
So, and also, can you explain? I mean, our information is that, for whatever reason, there are some people who don't trust election results, presumably when it doesn't go their way. I'm talking about voters here, and
Mhm.
that has meant that a lot of people have volunteered at ballot counting centers. Is that true? And is that something that you welcome?
So that is true. I think what we've been seeing here recently is there is a crisis in confidence in elections in this country. There are many people who either don't believe the results of elections, or don't believe in the process, or and I think this is more common, they just don't believe their vote counts or their vote matters. And I think that's a separate problem than not believing in the process.
Mm.
When we're talking about 100 plus million folks voting, maybe upwards of 150 million Americans voting, it's hard sometimes for someone to believe that their one vote matters. And so, one of the messages that we've been sharing with folks is that not only can they trust the process and they can observe the process, and we encourage people to come in and observe the process, and we are seeing kind of record numbers in terms of folks asking to observe various elements of the process. But we want that. We want them to come and see that, we execute these elections according to the law, according to the code. It's transparent so they can watch it happen and they can believe in the results. We tell folks all the time, I tell all of our poll workers, I tell every voter I can, that this entire process is transparent with the exception of who a voter votes for. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that is secret about this entire process.
And you don't have any concerns about that? You worried that any of them might be disruptive? I mean, obviously, when it comes to any kind of section of democracy of the election process, etc. A lot of people, maybe more so in this country than in America, think about January the 6th and just the potential for trouble. How do you vet these volunteers? What's the process?
Yeah, so for folks who are going to actually be working with my department is typically, when it's not an election, a staff of about 11 people, in addition to myself.
Mm,
And so typically we have about a dozen folks here, and we balloon to nearly 300 people working this election in this county. And so there is a vetting process for folks who are going to be handling ballots, who are going to be counting, who are going to be running, tabulators and other machinery. And security is always kind of at the forefront. So there's a real balance between, transparency with the public. We want folks to be able to see this process, but there are security measures in place at every step of the way,
mm,
and redundant security measures, right? So that we don't have any slip ups. I'm a graduate of West Point, the United States Military Academy. I served in the Army, combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. So security is always kind of in the back of my mind, at least in my professional life. It's no different in elections. Security is paramount, but we also have to balance that security with access. We want
mm.
people to vote. We want people to come and observe the process, and we're set up for that. We want folks to see what is going on at the vote centers. We want folks to be able to come to the central count facility where we process the ballots. We want people to see that so they can believe it, so they can evangelize that to their family and friends.
And just finally, what has changed? What are the kind of increased, if they are increased, security precautions that you've put in place?
Yeah, so I think it starts with additional training for our staff, and specifically working on de escalation training. We see a lot of folks who are very passionate about their candidates right now. And you couple that with folks who may be really skeptical of the process.
Mm,
And one of the things that is kind of in the back of my mind and in the back of the mind of many elections officials is, how do we create a safe environment at the vote centers, and at all of our processing facilities, so that folks who can come and watch the process, but they can be safe while they do it, and importantly, our elections workers can be safe doing it. And so it starts with training. We've increased de-escalation training. We've increased, a presence and cooperation with law enforcement, in the event that anything unfortunate does happen. We don't anticipate that, but we'd be naive to kind of neglect that planning. And so that's really kind of where our efforts have been focused.
okay. Mel, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.